What up, YouTube? This is Steven, and welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about colorism and violence. Alright, okay, so we more or less know about colorism. I don't really have to go into depth about colorism, and we know about violence, right? But I kind of want to talk about like when colorism turns violent, right? Like, there's usually stories about people, and they're like, oh, I was chased home by this group of people, or I was attacked by this group of people, usually during like the adolescent age range, right? Teenage, adolescent range, right? And I'm just thinking, I'm like, wow, what triggered people to become violent in terms of colorism? And oftentimes when we think about the victims when it comes to like violent colorism, usually it's lighter skinned people, right? Lighter skinned females and lighter skinned males, right? Usually are the victims of colorism, the violent colorism, right? And oftentimes it seems like from what I've heard over the years, when it came to the violent aspect of colorism, usually I see that the perpetrators are like dark-skinned people, like dark-skinned males, dark-skinned females, for some reason. And I'm thinking, like, what motivated like the dark-skinned males and females to kind of like take colorism to like the violence level? What made them become violent with their lighter skin counterpart, or their lighter skin brother or sister community member, right? What caused the violence, right? And I'm not sure. I guess I can't really, I can speculate, but I don't know for sure because of a few reasons, right? I'm not really part of the, I'm not really like dark skin, and I'm not really perpetuating violence and colorism, so I don't know, but I guess I can speculate, right? I guess a few theories. One theory is that I like to throw out is kind of like the exertion of power. Since black people, especially black males, have been sort of just, like in a position where they can't really have much authority or power, maybe it's like them wanting to, especially when it comes to males, like wanting to exert some power and some authority over another person / group of people, right? Like, especially, again, this is especially for males, but I think it can kind of, go with females too, but to maybe a lesser extent. But with males, I think like it's one thing to exert power and authority over a female, but I think it's another thing, even more gratifying and satisfying, to exert power and authority over another man or another male, right? It's a little bit different. That dynamic is a little bit different, So I think that may be a reason, Also, another reason is maybe, the dark-skinned people view these people, the lighter-skinned biracial folks, as sort of being like, kind of like white, maybe. Like, sometimes dark-skinned folks do be calling like light-skinned and biracial people white, and like, as an insult, right? Like, oh, you ain't black, you white, or something, something to that extent, right? So I was like, hey, let me get back at this, get back at Whitey, So I think that may have something to do with it as well. Another thing is maybe they, both the dark-skinned males and females feel like these light-skinned people are sort of like stepping on their toes, taking opportunities, especially when it comes to, I guess, dating. And usually at this point in my personal experience, like when I was in school and stuff like that, it was kind of more so about like, the dark skinned, quote unquote, chocolate guys, right? It was about them. But when it comes to light skinned and dark skinned women, it's always been about like the light skinned woman. It's never kind of like flipped around and been about the dark skinned women like it did with like light skinned dudes and dark skinned dudes, right? So when this stuff happens and I can understand kind of like dark skinned women kind of like lashing out in violence. I don't condone it, unless it's just to defend yourself, but I don't condone using violence as a way to like cope with the situation and to deal with the situation. However, with males, I'm like, well, where's the violence coming from? Because, like, as far as my situation is concerned, in my experience, like, you kind of like have been the preferred one. You've been the one placed on the pedestal. You've been the one getting the media promotion. You've been the one that's being, lusted after, sought after, the one who carries blackness or has the key to blackness, who carries blackness, who can pass on blackness, etc. Right? So it's like, what are you mad for? It's like it's been all about you anyway. But for some reason, a lot of times, like, and even not even just violent stuff, but just like little slick comments. Because I always say, like, me personally, in my experience, I don't think it was ever like the violence I received was being for being light skinned. Not that I received like a lot of violence, or anything like that, or anything, because I really haven't. But where I'm getting at is like, it's sometimes I think when it comes to, I think some dark skinned males, they kind of feel the need to sort of like poke at light skinned dudes for some reason. I don't know why. And I can understand this coming from like the older generation maybe, but this is the more like the younger generation though. I know like the 80s was I guess a difficult time, quote unquote, for dark skinned men for some reason, right? Again, that media promotion, because like back in the 80s, it's like a whole bunch of like light skinned dudes who are popping off in the media, right? Media promotion is important, right? But around the 90s, it took a turn and things sort of flipped, and now that dark skinned, brown skinned dudes are getting the media promotion, right? So I think if we were to do that with dark skinned women, we could sort of see like a flip around between light skinned and dark skinned women, perhaps, or at least to an extent. But yeah, when it comes to dark skinned dudes, I'm just be like, like, what's the meme for? What's the light skinned dude memes for? What's the light skinned dude jokes for? It's like, like, oh wow, like, it seemed like a bit odd to me. It just seemed a little odd, like, kind of like, almost like wanting to rub salt on the wound. But it's like, why though? It's like, I guess maybe to like rub it in, like, yeah, now you know how it, like, but I'm like, do we really know how it feels though? Like, do you know how it feels? Do I know how it, like, I don't know. It's just, ultimately, the situation is just a little strange to me when it comes to dark skinned dudes and light skinned dudes, and kind of like the little slick comments, Now, I will say that I have kind of, received a slick comment here and there throughout, you know, you know, grade school, right? Here and there. But ultimately, you know, I don't hold it against the whole collective of dark-skinned men. I don't, when I enter a room and I see a group of dark-skinned men, I'm not like, I'm just like, oh, okay, that's what's up, it's not, for me, I kind of just individualize those instances usually, right? Because I think ultimately the majority of my interactions with darker skinned males have been, positive, or at least just uneventful. But of course, I could probably speak on a couple of things here and there, perhaps, but I think ultimately, yeah. But I guess to bring it back to the violence, yeah, it's like, okay, when it comes to dark skinned dudes, I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I guess dark skinned people in general, I was like, well, gee, like, is it that bad that you have to put hands on somebody? And sometimes it's not even just putting hands on people, it's like using weapons against people. Like, I was watching like the Light Girls documentary, and one girl was like, oh yeah, they like had some razor blades and they cut up some light skinned girls. The dark skinned girls had razor blades, and they were cutting up the light skinned girls with razor blades. Then I heard about one story where like dark skinned women, or a group of dark skinned girls or women, like killed this light skinned girl. I heard about it. I can't cite it or anything. I just heard about it though. Um, yeah, it's like, did it get that bad though? Like, where did the violence come from? I'm like, to keep it real, the violence need to be directed towards white people. To keep it real, I mean, I know light skinned people can be, a little pretentious, or a little bougie, a little uppity, a little sedity, but in comparison between light skinned and mixed people, light skinned biracial people with white people, who is the lesser of the evils? Keep it real. Who would you rather deal with? To keep it real, who would you rather have in your family? Who would you rather work under? Who would you rather be friends with? Right? Light skinned and biracial folks were not out here raping, lynching, blowing up dark skinned folks' communities. Let's keep it real. We weren't. However, I will keep it real again and say that I will say light skinned people did perpetuate some BS. Kind of like when it came to, I think, certain organizations, entry to certain organizations, as well as living in certain neighborhoods, things like that. It was like the paper bag test, and as well, like if you were a certain shade of black, they wouldn't let you into the organization, nor would they let you live in the community. So I will acknowledge that aspect, but I feel like that aspect, it is old. It's older. It's like an older generation thing. I don't really see like it happening so much so with the newer generation though. So I can understand at that particular time some black people being violent towards light-skinned people, because they may feel like they're just another white devil, basically. Like, you just a white devil with a tan, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, if you were a dark skinned person, would you say you've been the victim of colorism? A violent colorism, right? Violent colorism. Um, or perhaps would you say you perpetuated violent colorism towards another individual as a dark skinned person? And I guess to the light skinned people, maybe, have you been a victim of violent colorism, or have you perpetuated violent colorism towards dark skinned people, right? Just kind of like, I think this is a sort of interesting topic to touch on, because I don't think these topics are really touched on that much. I think they're sort of like swept under the rug or just ignored, because they can kind of come off as divisive, and I know the saying is like, how can I divide something that's already divided? But then again, it's like, well, this isn't helping bridge the gap either, right? And I guess I will say this. I think it's sort of easy to just sort of just write off the dark skinned people as just being violent, right? because that's kind of like the theme that's been perpetuated through America throughout the years, right? Violent, um, criminal, um, um, you know, the boogeyman, basically, right? But I will say, like, as a group of people, black people in general have received probably the most violence as far as a group of people in this country, right? And if we were to split hairs, I would say dark-skinned people would have received the very most violence as far as like a group of people are concerned in this country, right? So this group of people who have kind of like historically been the victims of violence, turning around and perpetuating violence, is then again, is that really a surprise? You know, is that really a surprise to see something like that happen? But as I put it before, it's like, well, I think that if we are perpetuating violence, it needs to be perpetuated towards white people, not towards our own, right? I know that we're going to have our issues and stuff like that, but I think it shouldn't be fueled and triggered by colorism. It should just be fueled and triggered by just normal interactions, whether, just normal interactions that aren't good, or normal situations that aren't good, etc. But I don't. I definitely don't condone colorism violence. No matter who it's coming from. I'm not trying to just single out dark skinned people, dark skinned folks. As well, I definitely don't condone, bougie, pretentious, uppity, light-skinned people as well. I definitely call them out too when they are talking about some messed up stuff. Like you got that I guess chick who thinks she light-skinned in the car talking all this like disparaging stuff about dark-skinned women and just dark-skinned people in general, saying like, oh, it's not my fault you look dirty or whatever. Just certain just nasty, malicious stuff to say, right? So I don't condone that either, right? So I think we as a community probably just need to find better ways to deal with the issue. And violence should be like the last resort. That should be the very last result when it comes to us in the community. When it comes to, us dealing with us in the community, I think we need to find some sort of a middle ground. And violence is not going to help us to find that middle ground. It's just going to divide us even more, right? Because, what's the dynamic is like, let's say a light-skinned chick got attacked repeatedly over the course of her youth by a dark-skinned chick. You think she really gonna be like, oh, that's my people? No. If the situation was flipped around, dark-skinned women wouldn't be saying that either. They wouldn't be like, oh, that's my people. They're like, no, I don't like them. They ain't my people, right? So I guess that's just my 2 cents on this situation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to comment. Feel free to subscribe. Feel free to give me a thumbs up. Your feedback and support are extremely appreciated and extremely valued. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.